Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the roster moves that the Browns made this morning, including waiving 2 players, and whether or not that signals an incoming trade. The Browns' Twitter streets certainly think so. Even the streets of Cleveland think there might be a big move on the horizon. I maintain my stance of I don't think that is the case, but it is fun to live in that world because that's a more exciting world to live in. And training camp wrapped up today, the final training camp practice. So we're going to kind of go over some of my overarching takeaways, some news, some notes, including an injury update on Grant Delpit. Now, before we get into all of that good stuff, help us take down Steelers Talk in subscribers for the month of August. We've got a narrow lead. We are ramping up to 1,000. I view this like the space race here. Let's get to 1,000 subs before Steelers Talk can. Help us take down our foes here at Chat Sports by clicking the subscribe button. So the roster moves that the Browns made earlier today, Mary Kay tweeting out, the Browns have waived quarterback Kellen Mond and defensive end Charles Wiley. Now, Charles Wiley move, no offense, Mr. Wiley, is not too earth-shattering. Neither is the Kellen Mond move either, but we know quarterbacks always get some more attention. So we have our final quarterback room for 2023. It's no surprise. Deshaun Watson, Josh Dobbs, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I do want to verbalize, all 3 of these players are going to make the active 53-man roster. The roster cutdown can get a bit confusing between the PUP list, the NFI list, IR, all that stuff. All 3 of these players are making the active 53-man roster, meaning DTR or Dobbs, who, by the way, was named the backup today by Stefanski, is not going to be waived. If the Browns waive Dorian Thompson-Robinson to put them on their practice squad, there is a 1,000% chance a team will claim him off of waivers because he has looked better than, I don't want to say it, but I will, Baker Mayfield down in Tampa so far this month. So I think the Browns ultimately just gave Kellen Mond a head start to find a backup job elsewhere. If they released him on Tuesday for roster cutdown day, other teams might have sort of finalized their quarterback room already, and they're like, we don't want to bring in someone else. But now teams have a little bit of a few days or so to at least put that seed in their thought and go, maybe we should add Kellen Mond. He's better than our third stringer. As for the defensive line, it's no surprise that Wiley was released. He was not really competing at all for the 53-man roster spot, if we're being realistic. Maybe he was looking for a practice squad gig in the Browns' eyes, but there will be some more cuts to be made here. I think Garrett, Tomlinson, Harris, Smith, McGuire, Ika, and Okoronkwo are all locks to make the roster. Alex Wright, I could see making the roster, and then they put him on short-term IR. I did see him walking around after getting knee surgery and having a big kind of cast, if you will, or like a wrap around his knee. So encouraging to see him walk around. But I think the next question that people are asking is, hey, so the Browns have moved on from 2 players. Why now, right? Well, for starters, if you know those guys aren't going to make the 53-man roster and you have other players you want to see play more in the final preseason game because you are uncertain about them, don't have Wiley or Mond on the field taking snaps away. Mond, I think, was released just because Watson's going to play, Dobbs is going to play, and DTR is going to play in this preseason finale. You don't need a 4-quarterback room for 1 game. That's kind of overkill. So Mond gets an opportunity to try and find a job elsewhere. As for Wiley, I'm not quite sure if the Browns just decided today's the day we're going to start making a few cuts, or if there is someone out there that they are eyeing and they want to open up a roster spot. I know that Josh Cribbs certainly thinks that's the case. Browns legend, no doubt about it. Would love to see him maybe work as a special teams coach for this team one day. But he tweeted out the Browns just freed up a few roster spots, and with the cap space, I'm leaning more and more towards a potential trade or an acquisition in the coming days. I don't know if Cribbs is just stirring the pot a little bit, but he definitely knows a thing or two about what it's like playing in the NFL and the transactions that go about. So I'm not going to say Cribbs is, completely off base here. He has no idea what he's talking about. But I don't think a big move is coming. I think that Andrew Berry restructured the contracts of the players he believes that are going to be here for the duration of their contract. So there's no fear of releasing them a year or 2 early like Austin Hooper or John Johnson, and you sign up to pay some dead cap money. But when you restructure players' contracts and push that money down and then you cut them, that money is a one big pile of shit that you now have to pay, and they're not even on your roster. Now, We have seen some trades go down. Isaiah Simmons got traded from the Cardinals to the Giants today for a 7th. What? What am I missing here? We talked about trading for Isaiah Simmons just 2-3 days ago. I thought it would cost much more, like a 4th, maybe a 3rd. I don't know if the Cardinals are like, we're just going to get everyone's 7th-round draft picks, and then we're going to have 32 picks, and surely one of them will be the next Tom Brady. I'm not quite sure what their thinking was. They also traded a starting tackle today, not just for a 7th, but they got a 5th-round pick back. So, very bizarre trade, but you might still see some more trades coming in the next 72 hours as teams sort of shape up their final rosters going, hey, we gave so-and-so, let's just say in this case, we gave this RB3 an opportunity to show us he could maybe push for an RB2 job. Didn't happen after a month of training camp and 2 preseason games. So now we're going to go out and get the backup running back that we wanted to wait and see if our own guy could get the job done. Didn't happen, but we know this guy over in Minnesota or Tennessee could step in and do the job well. So with that, let me know what you think about this pinned question today. Will the Browns add a starter before week 1? I don't really know where they would add a starter at, right? It's not going to be the offensive line. It's not going to be anywhere on the offense. Not going to be quarterback, not going to be running back, not going to be wide receiver, not going to be tight end. On defense, the last question mark was the guy lining up next to Dalvin Tomlinson, the DT2. But you signed Shelby Harris. So it's not going to be a defensive tackle, at least not as a starter. Maybe a linebacker if Walker and Taki aren't healthy. They've been practicing, so 17 days away from week 1, I'm feeling pretty positive about at least one of the 2 of them being able to go alongside JOK and maybe Tony Fields for a spot start. But secondary is good to go. I just don't see where a big splash trade is coming. Maybe a lower level trade for like an RB2, an RB3. Jerome Ford is still working his way back from a hamstring injury, but I hate to, not be the fun guy and go trade. I love trades. I just don't see one happening. Speaking of just roster news and notes and whatnot in general, Grant Delpit is in uniform, warming up for practice. Left yesterday after a collision, but it was nothing serious, that Mary Kay tweets. So very encouraging to see. The video of the collision is on my Twitter, at Matthew Petey. We'll get that up at the bottom of the screen in just a moment. So there was a little bit of fear of, okay, we could have an issue here of Grant Delpit missing some time, but ultimately looks like he should be ready to go by week 1 as long as he continues to have good days like this where he's practicing the next day. Now, let's talk about training camp, though, as it is in the books. 2023 Browns training camp is over. The last 2 practices open to fans were rained out, which is a big-time bummer. The Browns went inside. Very crowded. I don't know if you guys have seen the clips and whatnot, but I wouldn't be shocked if AB is looking, if Haslam is looking to expanding the facilities in Berea. But overarching takeaways from the first day in West Virginia to the last day in Berea for training camp, Deshaun Watson looked much better. Last year, there was a ginormous elephant in the room that we don't need to dive too deep on that clearly had Deshaun Watson preoccupied mentally and just not all the way there ready to lead an NFL franchise. This time, very different. Watson looked much sharper, much more accurate. The big plays were there. And also, he was QB1. Last year, that was Jacoby Brissett, remember. Watson was running with the second-team offense a lot. So a very different tempo, a very different mood feel for training camp this year. And Watson, he looked a lot like the guy that led the NFL in passing in 2020. Second takeaway I've got from start to finish, Denzel Ward is back, baby. He is back. I'm talking full-on hangover mode. We are back, baby. We are back because Denzel Ward got off to a bit of a slow start to the season last year, but you really noticed that he did not look like himself. And luckily, we are hopefully seeing the return of the Warden because last year was bad. Like, PFF overall grade kind of says everything you need to know. 56.8 overall. He had 3 interceptions. His streak of 2+ interceptions continues. He played, I think, the most amount of games in his NFL career. Was it 14, 15 games, something in that neighborhood? So Denzel Ward has been sharp. He has been a nuisance for the offense. Pass breakup after pass breakup with interceptions sprinkled in between. The Browns got their $100+ million cornerback back, it looks like, which is really encouraging to see. because they need every help on defense they can get if they want to take down Mahomes and Burrow and Allen deep in the postseason. Third takeaway I've got, Elijah Moore has just been the show. I mean, he has had all the eyeballs on him, not because he is some big name hotshot coming in, but because he joined the Browns with an asset that Cleveland really was lacking, which was speed and just, I wouldn't say creativity, but a little bit of spunk, right? A little bit of gadgetness where you're not going to put Amari Cooper or DPJ in the backfield. But you can do that with Elijah Moore, and that brings new wrinkles for Kevin Stefanski, right? That allows the offense to have more dimensions to it and not be so boxed in to tall, lengthy receivers that can't separate super well. Elijah Moore can do that for you. He makes defenses respect that about the Browns now, and he has looked as hoped for so far throughout training camp and even in the one preseason game. So Elijah Moore has definitely excelled thus far in training camp. Fourth takeaway I've got, Andrew Berry's drafting has not been superb, I think we can all agree on, but he might have nailed this draft class. Despite having no first-round pick and no second-round pick, I kind of want to say it's Andrew Berry's best work pound for pound. You look at the draft class, Cedric Tillman has been a stud so far. He is going to rise the ranks throughout the regular season. Siaki Ika was a pick that I wasn't doing cartwheels over. He's going to come along. I don't think you should have very high expectations for him in year one. DeJuan Jones is looking like the steal of the draft so far. He has been a mountain of a human being that no edge rusher has been able to get past and sack the quarterback. Isaiah McGuire is in full redshirt freshman mode. He's just going to be a sponge around Za'Darius and Myles Garrett. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I don't need to say anymore. DTR would start on some teams, I believe, in the NFL right now that are in QB battles going into the regular season. Cameron Mitchell has flashed. He has shown a lot of potential working out of the slot. And then Luke Whippler has done some solid work running into the second half of preseason games. He's not been some big liability on the field. So the rookies so far have impressed. DeJuan Jones has definitely jumped out to me, though, as a big-time winner, along with DTR and Cedric Tillman. Final note I've got from training camp, and a storyline that I kind of wish I'd have talked more about. That's David Njoku. He has really developed a strong connection with Deshaun Watson. I've talked to people in Berea. I've talked to people with boots on the ground, and those near the Browns are saying that Watson and Njoku are forming a very tight relationship on the field. The chemistry is apparent. Njoku continues to get open, and number 4 continues to find him. Last year, he basically had his best season since his second season in the NFL. Unfortunately, he missed 3 games due to injury, but let's say he has 50 yards and 2 touchdowns in those 3 games. I don't think that's wildly, 50 yards each game, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns over the 3 games he misses. We're talking about a near 800-yard tight end and 6 touchdown guy. The Browns aren't asking for Njoku to be a top 3 tight end. They're asking him to file in between 4 and 10, somewhere in that range, much closer to 4 than 10, though. And if you get a healthy Njoku, which that has been the issue so far, there is a good belief that Deshaun Watson in the red zone is going to find him a lot, and he could be a 750-yard receiver who gets 6 to 8 touchdowns, and that would really open up things offensively, going, hey, once we get close to the goal line, just throw it in 85's direction. He'll find a way to bring it down like in the Bucs game last season. So who do you think has the better 2023 season? Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, or David Njoku? Put the jersey number down below for the player you think has the best season, however you want to measure that, whether it's receiving yards, touchdowns, or just kind of the eye test of this guy made big-time plays in big-time moments. Let me know down below in the comment section. I'm going to type 8 for Elijah Moore. Let's pick a card here. We've got Smitty behind the camera. Smitty, which card would you like to go with?
Plain and simple, boring pick, 6 of clubs. I don't know, I'm feeling
clubs? It. I like it. That's a club sandwich at a restaurant. My grandma loves to do that. I'm like, come on. You don't dine out to get a club sandwich. Okay, I'm going to go with, she watches every video, so she's definitely going to call. She has no idea what I talk about, though. She's not a sports person, but now she got a shout out, so shout out to you, Grandma. I'm going to go with the Jack of Diamonds. This card hits so often. 3 of diamonds. 3 of diamonds. I feel like it hits a lot when you're here too.
It has. It's been at least 3 or 4 times
There's
since
a
I've been
magnet
on.
between Smitty and the 3 of diamonds. I don't know what it is. That will wrap it up for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we will see everyone tomorrow.